Evelyn Mercer tapped a knife against her champagne flute and rose beneath the restaurant's paper lanterns. "To 14 years of Grant and Mara," she said, smiling across our anniversary table, "and to the little brand I built along the way." Grant nodded. Actually nodded. Colin and Neil, our business partners, applauded with the buyers and department heads we'd invited to what I'd thought was an anniversary dinner. Grant put his hand over mine as if to keep me seated. "Let her have her moment," he whispered. I had signed every Lark Linen trademark renewal since launch. That year's notice had arrived at our house addressed to me alone, and Grant didn't know it yet. I let Evelyn finish her speech, then stood. Grant looked up, caught between concern and warning. For one stupid second, I still expected him to correct her. Instead, he lifted his glass and said, "To Mom." Everyone drank. I picked up my purse. "Mara?" Colin asked. "I have an early morning." Neil glanced at the anniversary cake waiting on the sideboard. It was 3 tiers of lemon and elderflower under pale sugar flowers copied from our spring linens. Evelyn had ordered it from a baker I used for catalog shoots, then charged it to Lark Linen's hospitality account. "At 9 o'clock?" she asked. "I like to prepare." A few people laughed because they thought I was joking. Grant squeezed my fingers before I could pull away. "Sit down," he said quietly. "I'm going home." His smile held for the table. We came together. We don't have to leave together. That landed. His fingers loosened. Evelyn's expression softened into concern, the face she used when a vendor had disappointed her in public. "Honey, if the speech embarrassed you, I'm sorry. I assumed we could all laugh at a little exaggeration." "You didn't sound like you were exaggerating." "Oh, Mara." She gave the room a fond, helpless look. "She's always been our fact-checker." More laughter, thinner this time. Grant's hand dropped from mine. "Don't do this here." I looked at the people around the table. Tessa Bell, our operations director, had stopped smiling. Colin was studying the bubbles in his drink. Neil's husband abruptly became fascinated by the dessert menu. I could have told them exactly where Lark Linen began, at my dining table with 6 yards of flawed, flax-colored linen and a sewing machine that shook hard enough to make the water in my glass tremble. I could have told them I drew the first lark on the back of a cream order card because the customer on the phone kept changing her mind about napkin sizes. I could have told them Evelyn joined us 5 years later when Grant said his mother needed a reason to get dressed in the morning. Instead, I pulled my hand free. "Enjoy the cake." Outside, the air smelled like wet brick. Richmond had been threatening rain all evening without delivering it. The restaurant valet jogged toward me, then slowed when I held up the claim ticket. "Mrs. Mercer? Mr. Mercer said you were staying until 10. "Mr. Mercer is mistaken. He brought my car. The anniversary gift Grant had given me before dinner sat unopened on the passenger seat. The box was long, narrow, and tied with Lark Linen sage ribbon. He had wrapped my personal gift in company packaging. That seemed funny until I laughed and heard how close it was to crying. At home, I found the envelope on the floor beneath the mail slot. It had slid against the brass printing plate leaning beside the entry console. I'd brought the plate home 2 days earlier because our packaging designer wanted to photograph the scratches and ink stains for a heritage collection. The original lark was etched backward in the metal, its wings raised inside a loose oval. My thumb knew the shallow nick beneath its beak. I picked up the envelope. United States Patent and Trademark Office was printed in the corner. The address beneath my name was our house, not the office Grant had spent 6 months consolidating everything into. The envelope wasn't a surprise. The date was. I carried it to the kitchen, opened it with the paring knife beside the fruit bowl, and read the notice standing up. The registration for Lark Linen was approaching renewal. The filing required declarations about continued use, examples of the mark in commerce, fees, and the owner's signature. My signature. 9 years earlier, when the company was still me, selling napkins and table runners from folding tables at weekend markets, I had registered the name personally. Grant called the filing fee an indulgence. Then a hotel buyer placed an order large enough to make him stop laughing. Later, when we formed the LLC with Colin and Neil, the accountant listed my trademark among the intellectual property licensed to the company. We talked about transferring it. The transfer never happened. There was always a shipment late, a catalog due, a bigger problem that needed solving first. I had signed the last renewal at this same kitchen counter while Grant fed shipping labels into the old printer. He'd kissed the top of my head and called me his brilliant bureaucrat. The front lock turned. I folded the notice once and set it beneath the grocery circular. Grant came in carrying the anniversary cake's top tier in a white box. "You left your own party," I noticed. He set the cake on the counter with exaggerated care. Everyone noticed. "That must have been hard for you." "What was I supposed to do, tackle you by the valet stand? You could have corrected your mother." He removed his jacket and draped it over the back of a chair. Grant was handsome in the useful way certain men were handsome. Clean jaw, dependable shoulders, silver beginning at the temples exactly where silver looked expensive. His tie had tiny larks on it. I had designed them. "It was a toast," he said. "She said she built the company. She said she built the brand. Thank you for clarifying. You know what she meant. I don't." He opened the cake box, found no knife inside, and stared at it as if the restaurant had failed him personally. "She means she gave us visibility. She gave us warmth." Before Mom started hosting, buyers thought we were another cold little linen company with an Etsy hangover. That's what she means? That's what anyone reasonable heard. I heard our partners applaud her. They were being polite. You nodded. He rubbed both hands down his face. Because she was saying something kind about us on our anniversary. She was saying something kind about herself. And there it is. What? This thing you do where generosity becomes evidence against you. I looked at him. He pulled open the silverware drawer, took out a knife, and cut into the cake. Mom spent years flying all over the country for Lark Linen. She charmed buyers you couldn't stand to be in a room with. She got Southern Hearth to put us on their holiday cover. I art directed that cover, and she got the editor to take the meeting. I wrote every sentence Evelyn said in the meeting. Grant placed a slice on a plate. Do you hear yourself? You want a footnote every time someone compliments her. I want my husband not to nod when his mother says she built what I built. He took a bite, chewed, and looked past me toward the dark window. That's not what tonight was about, he said. What was tonight about? Our anniversary. Then why were there buyers there? His fork stopped. I had asked the question casually, and that made his answer take longer. Because people are already in town for the planning sessions. Which people? Mara. Which planning sessions? He put down the fork. We're exploring a hospitality expansion. Nothing has been approved. Hotel linens? Tabletop lifestyle. Curated hosting packages. Mom's audience overlaps with the customer we need. Her audience? Her newsletter list. Event contacts. People who recognize her. The cake's cut face shone yellow beneath the kitchen light. You turned our anniversary dinner into a pitch. No. We invited people we care about who also happen to work with us. And your mother's speech? I didn't write it. That isn't what I asked. His eyes flicked toward the circular beneath my hand. What do you want me to say? The front door opened again. Evelyn called, I come bearing abandoned presents. She stepped into the kitchen without waiting for an answer, holding the long, sage-ribboned box from my car. A blue ribbon swung from the key in the lock behind her. There she is. Evelyn kissed my cheek. My little fugitive. You have a key, I said. She laughed. For almost a decade. I know. Grant watched me pick the key from the lock. The ribbon was faded where fingers had polished the fabric. Evelyn set the gift on the counter. Grant was upset you didn't open this. I'll open it later. Open it now. I helped him choose. Of course she had. I slid off the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside was a silk scarf printed with a scatter of larks over sage green. It was from our unreleased hospitality collection. It's a sample, I said. It's the final sample, Grant corrected. I haven't approved the colors. Mom loves them. Evelyn touched the fabric. The darker green feels richer. Your original was a touch clinical. My original matched the table linens. We changed those too, Grant said. I turned to him. Who is we? He leaned against the counter. The team. Tessa approved a color change without showing me. Tessa approved the production schedule. I approved the color. You don't approve design. I'm the chief executive of the company. You're not the creative director. We don't have time for territorial nonsense anymore. Evelyn lifted the scarf and draped it around my shoulders. The silk was cool against my neck. See? It brings out your eyes. I pulled it off. The grocery circular shifted under my elbow, exposing the government's seal on the envelope. Grant saw it. What's that? I handed him the notice. He read the first page while Evelyn ate a bit of icing from the cake knife. He didn't look surprised by the contents, only inconvenienced. Great, he said. Sign it and leave it on my desk. I'll have Mel process the fee. Evelyn wiped icing from her thumb. Is that the trademark thing? The renewal, I said. How thrilling. Another glamorous night in the Mercer household. Grant folded the paper along the crease I'd already made. Can you do it before Monday? You moved all company correspondence to the office. Yes. This came here. Because the address is old. It came to me. Because your name is old. The words hung there. He heard them. I watched him decide not to take them back. Evelyn broke the silence. You two are tired. I'm going to rescue what remains of your evening by leaving. She picked up her purse and held out her hand to me. I looked at it. My key, honey, unless you plan to lock me in. Grant made a warning sound under his breath. I slipped the key off the blue ribbon and placed the ribbon in her palm. Evelyn's smile stayed where it was, but the skin around it changed. What are you doing? I'm going to have the locks changed tomorrow. Oh, don't be dramatic. You come in without knocking. I called from the car. My phone never rang. Then it didn't go through. You walked into my house during an argument. Our house, Grant said. I turned to him. Does she have a key to the office? She hosts events there. Does she have a key? Yes. Does she have an employment agreement? Evelyn's eyebrows rose. I beg your pardon? A title? Salary? Expense limit? Anything that says what you do and what you're authorized to spend? I am the founder ambassador. You aren't the founder. Grant stepped between us. That's enough. Evelyn put the blue ribbon on the counter. I have never taken a penny from this family that wasn't freely offered. Lark Linen paid $6,400 for your trip to Charleston last month. I met with clients. You attended a garden tour. With clients. You brought 4 friends. Potential clients. Grant's voice hardened. Mara, stop. There it was again. Not Mom, that isn't accurate. Not let's look at the expenses. Just my name. Used like a lid. Evelyn took her key from me. For a moment I thought she might drop it on the counter. Instead, she closed her fingers around it. I think, she said, you should ask yourself why sharing credit feels so threatening. Then she walked out. Grant waited until the front door shut. You humiliated her. She still has the key. Because it's hers. No, it's ours, Grant. We let her use it. He stared at me with the exhausted patience of a man confronting a problem beneath his rank. You're turning one stupid sentence into a crisis. I picked up the trademark notice. No, I said. I think the sentence told me there already was one. The next morning, I arrived at Lark Linen before 7. The converted tobacco warehouse still smelled faintly of brick dust when the heat came on. I unlocked the side door, climbed to the design floor, and found 3 rolling racks of hospitality samples where my work table should have been. My table had been moved against the far wall. The brass plate's empty mounting hooks lay beside my scissors. On the central mood board, someone had pinned a cream card beneath a photograph of Evelyn. Our story, it read. Below that, in Grant's handwriting, were the words, built by a mother, inspired by a home. I heard the elevator rise behind me. Tessa stepped out carrying 2 coffees. She saw me, saw the board, and stopped. "Mara," she said carefully, "Grant told me you weren't coming in today." I took the coffee she offered and set the trademark notice in its place. Grant's been wrong a lot since dinner. Tessa looked at the notice without touching it. "Is it a problem?" "That depends on what Grant plans to put the Lark on." She set the other coffee on the corner of my displaced table, the hospitality line, which I haven't approved. I know. "You approved the production schedule." Her mouth tightened. "I approved factory capacity for a possible November run. Grant told me design had final approval." "From whom?" "He said the final sample was at your house." "It was in an anniversary gift box." Tessa closed her eyes for half a second. "That's not what he told me." I took the cream card off the mood board. The photograph showed Evelyn standing in our showroom with one hand on the back of a dining chair, laughing at someone beyond the frame. I remembered the shoot. The photographer had asked her to move 3 times because she kept blocking the table setting. Who wrote this? Mel drafted it from Grant's notes. I was going to flag it. When? Before anything went public. I handed her the card. It's public if it's hanging where the staff can read it. Tessa removed the photograph too. I'll take down the board. No, leave it. She stared at me. If Grant wants to rewrite company history, he can do it where everyone sees who's holding the pen. The elevator opened again. 2 junior designers stepped out arguing cheerfully about whether a lamp they'd seen downstairs was ugly or aggressively French. They saw us and became deeply interested in their coffee lids. "Morning," I said. They answered together and hurried toward their desks. Tessa lowered her voice. "What happened at dinner?" "You were there. I mean, after." Evelyn walked into my house with her key. Grant showed me a line I hadn't approved. Then he told me to sign this. I tapped the renewal notice. "Are you going to?" "I'm going to read every page first. Grant thinks it's routine. That's his favorite kind of work, the kind I do routinely." Tessa glanced toward the glass conference room. "The planning session starts at 8. I wasn't invited. I assumed you were. Apparently, my invitation was the scarf." She almost smiled, then didn't. People began arriving in clusters carrying laptops and garment bags. By 8, the conference room held Grant, Colin, Neil, Mel from finance, Tessa, 3 department heads, and Evelyn, who entered wearing the green sample scarf I had left on the kitchen counter. She had tied it beautifully. Grant came out as I was returning my cutting table to its old position. "We need to talk." "We do. Privately." I let go of the table. Its metal wheel rolled over his shoe. He stepped back. Conference room. Every chair was occupied except the one at Grant's right. Evelyn sat at his left with a leather folio embossed with the Lark emblem. No one mentioned that I hadn't been on the calendar. Grant shut the door. "Before we start, last night got out of hand." Evelyn looked down at her folio with grave dignity. "I agree," I said. "We're all under pressure. This expansion could double our wholesale footprint, and I don't want a family disagreement interfering with a business decision." Colin rubbed his thumb over the rim of his coffee cup. "What family disagreement?" "Mara took issue with Mom's toast." "Mara left," Neil said. "Thank you, Neil," Grant replied. Neil lifted both hands. "I'm just establishing the level of issue." I put the renewal notice on the table. Who knew the hospitality collection was being presented for final production approval today? Silence moved around the glass room. Colin looked at Grant. "I thought Mara had signed off." "She was given the final samples," Grant said. "In a gift box," Tessa said. Grant's eyes went to her. Tessa kept her voice level. "That matters, operationally." Evelyn touched the scarf at her throat. "For heaven's sake, it was meant to be romantic." "Nothing says 14 years of marriage like surprise inventory," Neil said. Colin coughed into his fist to hide a laugh. Grant opened his laptop. "Can we not?" I sat in the empty chair. "Show me the proposal." Mel sent it to my screen. The first page displayed the Lark emblem above Lark Linen at home. The second introduced Evelyn as co-founder and chief brand ambassador. Her compensation included a monthly consulting fee, travel allowance, wardrobe allowance, and a percentage of revenue from the hospitality line. I read the number twice. "You offered her 2% of gross sales?" "It aligns incentives," Grant said. "What does the word gross mean in that sentence, Mel?" Mel looked miserable. "Revenue before expenses." "I know what it means. I'm asking whether Grant does. Don't be insulting. 2% before returns, production costs, warehousing, or commissions. She gets paid if the line loses money." Evelyn removed her glasses. "You say that as though I'm trying to rob you." "I'm asking what you're selling." "My relationships. The company paid to develop those relationships. My time developed them. The company paid for that, too. I was never paid a salary. You submitted expenses." "Expenses are reimbursement, Mara. They aren't compensation." $4,000 in clothes last quarter was reimbursement for what? "The brand has an image." "Then the clothes belong to the company." Neil looked down very quickly. Evelyn leaned back. "Do you want the dress from your anniversary dinner? I'll have it cleaned." Grant slapped his palm against the table. The sound was sharper than he intended. Everyone went still. "This is exactly why I wanted to handle this separately." "You handled it separately," I said. "That's why we're here." Colin pulled the proposal closer. "The founder language has to change, whatever else we decide." Evelyn's face turned toward him. He continued, "Mara founded Lark Linen. That's not a judgment. It's a date." "People understand founder as a feeling now," Evelyn said. Neil blinked. "Do they?" She smiled at him. "Customers aren't buying corporate minutes. They're buying a story." "Then tell them a true one," I said. Grant pushed away from the table and began walking through the slides. Sales projections, product categories, launch dates. By the time he reached the proposed holiday campaign, Evelyn was no longer the founder. She was the matriarch whose timeless hospitality shaped the soul of Lark Linen. He had prepared a second version. The realization was almost impressive. Grant hadn't been blindsided by my reaction. He had anticipated it and decided how much of my own history to return if I objected. "I'm not approving this," I said. "We're not asking one person to approve the entire expansion. You need my approval for design. We can revise the reporting structure. And you need my trademark." That stopped the room. Grant closed his laptop. "The company has used the mark since incorporation, under license." Colin looked between us. "Is there a written license?" "There's a schedule attached to the operating agreement," I said. "It identifies the mark as my property and grants company use while I provide creative services." Mel began typing. Grant's jaw shifted. "And you have provided creative services." "I haven't provided them for this collection." Evelyn's voice became very soft. "Are you threatening all of us because I made a toast? I'm refusing to approve work that was hidden from me. You said trademark. Because Grant told me my department is territorial nonsense. I said this argument was territorial nonsense. Those words sound better now that 10 people heard them." Tessa stood. "We can delay final production 7 days. That gives design time to review the samples and finance time to revisit the margin with the proposed consulting fee." 14, I said. "We don't have 14, Grant replied. "You changed the table linen colors. I need strike-offs. The mill can courier them." "Then 14. Colin nodded. 14. Grant looked at Neil. Neil shrugged. "I'm still trying to understand founder as a feeling." The meeting ended with no approval and 3 new assignments for Mel. It wasn't a victory. It was the temporary absence of a mistake. At my desk, I opened the company expense system. My access worked. Evelyn's Charleston trip showed 2 hotel suites, 5 garden tour tickets, car service, 7 client meals, and a charge from a boutique, whose name I recognized because Grant had complained about the price of its jackets. I exported every expense attached to Evelyn's name. Then I emailed Mel. Effective immediately. Expenses submitted without a documented business purpose and named attendees require partner review. No personal reimbursements from the hospitality account. Grant appeared before I could close the window. You froze Mom's card. I changed the approval rules. She's at the florist with a client. Then the client can watch her use her own card. You're making routine business impossible. Who is the client? He didn't answer. I turned my monitor toward him. Her Charleston client dinners included Colin twice. Colin was there for the garden tour. Then why is Evelyn receiving 2% for relationships the company already owns? He leaned over my desk. You are angry at me. Stop using employees and accounting rules to punish my mother. I asked you for a name. His phone rang. He silenced it without looking. Sign the renewal, he said. We'll separate this from the launch and discuss brand governance with the partners. Brand governance. Yes. Is that what you're calling my permission? That's what I'm calling a company too large to hinge on your moods. Something inside me went quiet. Move, I said. What? You're blocking my drawer. He stepped aside. I took out the personal checkbook I kept for emergency vendor payments. For years, whenever cash flow tightened before a large shipment, I covered small invoices from my account and let the company reimburse me later, sometimes months later. The latest check was for the showroom's electrical repair. I tore it in half. Grant watched both pieces fall into the trash. What was that? The electrician. Why were you paying an electrician personally? Because Mel said the operating account was tight until Southern Hearth paid. His expression changed, not to gratitude, but calculation. How much? $1,100. You already committed to it. The company committed. The company can pay. Mara, vendors don't care which pocket money comes from. I do. I removed my personal credit card from the office purchasing profile. Then I called the florist Grant had mentioned. Lark Linen, a cheerful woman answered. No, this is Mara from Lark Linen. Oh, sorry, Evelyn's standing right here. She said to put you on speaker. Evelyn's voice arrived bright and controlled. We're choosing arrangements for the buyer's dinner. What buyer's dinner? Next Thursday. The team asked me to keep moving while everyone cools down. The team didn't approve flowers. I'm hosting 12 people in the showroom. Then send Mel the names before placing the order. The florist became audibly busy with tissue paper. Evelyn lowered her voice. Must we conduct our marriage dispute through centerpieces? It's my marriage dispute now? You don't trust Grant, so you're counting my roses. Send the names. She hung up. At 4, the list arrived. 6 buyers, Grant, Colin, Neil, Evelyn, and 2 women from Evelyn's garden club. One buyer had retired the previous year. Another worked for a hotel group that had declined us 3 times. I forwarded it to the partners with the subject line, please confirm business purpose. Colin replied first, decline. Neil added, also 17 people are listed. Evelyn had counted badly. I laughed at my screen. It was the first good sound I'd made all day. At 5:30, I called the locksmith. Grant came home at 8 while the locksmith was packing his drill. The new key sat on the entry console beside Evelyn's blue ribbon. You actually did it, Grant said. I told you I would. You changed the lock on my house without asking me. Our house, I said. You taught me that last night. The locksmith stared very hard into his tool bag. I held out Grant's new key. He didn't take it. Give one to Mom. No. She checks the house when we travel. We have a security system. She brings in packages. So do I. She helps us. Then we can ask when we need help. Grant looked at the locksmith. Are you finished? Yes, sir. I paid him from my personal card because it was my decision, and because I wanted Grant to see exactly which pocket the money came from. After the door closed, he picked up the new key. You're enjoying this? No. You smiled. Because the locksmith wanted to become invisible. That isn't what I mean. I sat on the entry bench. The brass plate leaned beside my ankle, heavy and dull in the low light. Grant loosened his tie. Mom thinks you're trying to push her out before the trademark renewal. Why would she connect those things? She isn't stupid. I never thought she was. She says you've resented her visibility for years. Does she have examples, or just a feeling she founded? He looked away. I lifted the brass plate into my lap. Did you promise her ownership? His face gave me the answer before his mouth did. We discussed options. What options? A stake tied to the hospitality line. How much? It wasn't final. How much, Grant? 5% vesting over 3 years. From your share? From a new incentive pool. There is no incentive pool. There could be. So from all of us, if the line performs. I ran my finger over the backward Lark. Does Colin know? We were going to present it after the launch plan was approved. Does Neil? No. Does your mother? She knows we value her. I looked up. You told her. I told her there was a path. To owning the company I started. To earning equity in a company she helped grow. The word earning did something worse than built. Built was vanity. Earning was Grant's accounting of all the invisible years, and in his ledger I had already been paid because I was his wife. Where is my design archive? I asked. What? The server folders were moved. We migrated everything to a cleaner structure. My admin access is gone. IT restricted it during migration. Restore it. I'll ask tomorrow. You told them to restrict me. I told them to protect launch materials while emotions were high. I set the brass plate down carefully. Grant took a breath. This is temporary. Sign the renewal, approve the line after revisions, and we can put all of this behind us. You locked me out before you asked for my signature. I'm trying to protect the company. From me. From an impulsive decision. I stood. For the first time since dinner, he looked uncertain. I walked into the kitchen, opened the drawer where we kept takeout menus and spare batteries, and found the blue ribbon exactly where I had left it. I tied the new house key to it. Then I put the key in my purse. The following morning, all my company passwords failed. Mel called before I reached the office. Mara, don't come in yet. What happened? There was an emergency partner meeting at 6. Without me? Grant says the operating agreement permits a temporary suspension if an officer presents a material risk. What material risk? The trademark. The office side door rejected my code. Through the glass, I could see Tessa crossing the lobby toward me. She walked quickly, but not quickly enough to erase the fact that she had been inside while I stood on the sidewalk. She opened the door 3 inches and stopped it with her foot. I'm sorry, she said. Did you vote? I'm not a partner. But you were there. Her eyes filled, which made me angrier than if she'd looked away. They asked whether operations could continue without you for 30 days, she said. And? I said yes. Behind her, on the showroom wall, the Lark emblem had been covered with brown paper. Grant appeared at the top of the stairs. Tessa stepped back. He came down holding a white archive box. My scissors, sketchbooks, fabric ruler, and brass mounting hooks were inside. On top lay the cream card from the mood board, built by a mother, inspired by a home. He held the box through the narrow opening. This is temporary, he said. I took it from him. The box was lighter than it should have been. My original drawings aren't here. They're company records. They existed before the company. We'll sort ownership during the suspension. I looked past him at Tessa, then at the brown paper hiding the mark they were still planning to use. Grant lowered his voice. You can end this today. He meant the notice folded inside my purse. I shifted the box against my hip. So can you, I said, and let the door close between us. I carried the box 3 blocks before my arms began to shake. There was a coffee shop beside the old train station, and I set the box on an outdoor table hard enough to make my scissors jump. The cream card slid onto the sidewalk. A man walking a terrier stepped around it without looking. I left it there. My phone showed 7 missed calls, 4 from Grant, 2 from Colin, 1 from a number I recognized as the company's IT contractor. Grant's first message asked me to be reasonable. His 4th asked where the original brass printing plate was. I turned off the phone. At home, I spread the box's contents across the dining table. 12 sketchbooks were missing. So were the original logo drawings, 3 external drives, my first wholesale ledger, and the cream order cards I'd kept from the market days. Everything they had returned could be replaced at an office supply store. The brass plate rested beside the entry console. I carried it upstairs and slid it beneath the bed. Then I called Dana Weller. Dana had filed the original trademark application from a narrow office over a bakery. She now worked in a wider office over a more expensive bakery, but she still answered her own phone. "How long have you known your company doesn't own the mark?" she asked after I explained. "How long have you known?" I sent 3 letters recommending a formal license. To me, to the company. Grant answered the last one. I gripped the phone. What did he say? That the operating agreement covered it and additional paperwork wasn't a priority. What year? Let me look. I heard keys clicking. 21 months ago. Grant had known the mark was still mine while planning to give Evelyn equity in the line that used it. Dana asked me to email the operating agreement, renewal notice, and any records showing how the company used my designs. I told her my access had been cut off. "Do you have personal copies?" "I have whatever Grant forgot to take. Start there. The renewal maintains your registration. It doesn't resolve the company dispute, and their years of use matter. If you refuse all use immediately, they may argue the company has an ongoing implied license. So I own it, but I can't control it." "You can control it. The question is how much damage everyone is willing to absorb while you establish the boundary." That sounded less like legal advice than a description of my marriage. "What happens if I sign?" "You preserve the registration. Your signature also declares the mark remains in use on the listed goods. Even if I don't approve the goods, the declaration concerns use, not your marriage or internal design process." I thanked her and hung up before her billing clock could turn my confusion into an invoice I resented. The first person I called after that was Luis Ortega at Bellwether Press. Luis had printed our first paper belly bands when I could only afford 500. He answered with machinery thudding behind him. "I wondered when you'd call," he said. "Why?" "Your husband sent a purchase order for 20,000 boxes with the old bird. The old bird is the current mark. He called it the old bird. He said a cleaner file was coming. Did it? Yesterday. I asked for your approval. And he said he approves now." I closed my eyes. "Did you print?" "I make boxes. I don't referee marriages." Luis: "No, I didn't print. The plate belongs to your job account and the file changed. I need the account owner to approve a new plate. Who's the account owner?" "You." A small, clean piece of relief moved through me. "Don't run it," I said. "I already told them." "What did Grant say?" "He said he'd move the order." That relief vanished quickly. "Can he?" "He can find someone with a press." "But?" Luis lowered his voice as if Grant might be inside one of the machines. "But holiday capacity was booked in June. Anyone available this week is available for a reason." Grant arrived home shortly after 6. He found me sitting on the kitchen floor with folders arranged around me and the renewal notice on my knee. "You called Bellwether." Luis called the account owner. "He's holding a time-sensitive order over a technicality. He's holding it because you changed the artwork." Grant took off his jacket. "The line needs a distinct identity." "Then give it one that doesn't use my mark." He crouched across from me. Dana called Colin. That surprised me. Why? Because she represents the company on other matters. She filed my registration and then became company counsel, which is why she told Colin she can't represent either side in the dispute. His mouth tightened. He had expected me to be offended. I was relieved. "We need to de-escalate," he said. "Colin wants independent counsel to review the operating agreement." "Good. It could cost us tens of thousands." "You spent $16,000 developing a line without telling me. Developing products is what the company does. Designing products is what I do. You aren't the only person capable of choosing green." He said it with a little smile, offering me the chance to laugh. There had been years when I would have taken it, relieved that he was making us easy again. "Give me my drawings," I said. "They're at the office. They're mine. Some are company work product. Then let's sort them together. After the review. You'll use them until the review is over. I'm not discussing archive boxes on the kitchen floor. That's where your company left me." He stood. "I'm staying at Mom's for a few nights." The words were staged to make me stop him. I moved a folder so he wouldn't step on it. Grant waited, then went upstairs. He packed loudly. Hangers scraped, drawers closed. The closet door struck the frame twice. When he came down, he had the leather overnight bag I'd given him for our 10th anniversary. At the front door, he noticed the blue ribboned key in my purse. "Mom says you're trying to erase her." "She said that while I'm locked out of my own company? She's hurt. She's getting 2% of gross sales." That proposal is off the table. Because I found it. Because the situation changed. He opened the door. "Grant." He turned. "Did you tell Tessa to say operations could continue without me?" I asked her an operational question. You knew what her answer would do. I knew she'd tell the truth. He left. The house settled differently without him. The refrigerator hummed. Water clicked in the baseboards. I stayed on the kitchen floor until the light outside went blue, sorting receipts and contracts into piles that seemed both urgent and ridiculous. Near midnight, I found the first wholesale agreement. It named me, not the LLC. So did the original pricing letter from Lancaster Weaving, the mill that produced our linen cotton blend. I emailed their sales director, Carol, expecting a response the next morning. She called 5 minutes later. "I'm in Oregon," she said. "Don't admire my work ethic." "Grant placed the hospitality order with you?" He tried. "It's 40% above your normal volume." "Did he lock the pricing?" "He referenced your preferred rate." "Is it the company's rate?" "It's the rate I gave you when you agreed to use our imperfect selvage for cocktail napkins." I remembered that lunch. Carol had called the selvage rustic. I'd called it usable. "Can the company keep it if you're approving quality? And if I'm not?" "Then I have to price for normal waste." Grant's projections assumed the old rate. Normal waste would cut the hospitality margin nearly in half. "Don't change anything yet," I said. "Mara, are you still with Lark Linen?" I looked at my officer suspension email. "For 30 days, apparently I'm a material risk." Carol was quiet, then she said, "That sounds expensive." Tessa came to the house the next evening carrying a laptop and the green scarf in a plastic evidence bag from the supply closet. "You shouldn't be here," I said. "I'm returning company property." "That scarf has spent more time off company property than I have." She held it out. A pale ring had appeared near one edge. "What is that?" "Water." "Silk doesn't do that from water. This does." Inside, I laid the scarf on the kitchen island. The darker green had bled into the cream larks, giving each bird a faint moss-colored halo. "We haven't done wash testing," Tessa said. "It's a dry clean only scarf. Evelyn told the sales team it was washable. Why?" She said customers don't want fussy luxury. That silk is fussy. I know. She opened her laptop. The care instruction document had been edited under Evelyn's guest account. Silk scarves, linen runners, and embroidered napkins had all been changed to machine washable. "Grant approved this? His initials are on the release. Did you stop production?" I asked for a 48-hour hold, and he denied it. He thinks we can replace the care cards before shipping. What about the colors? The first hotel samples went out this morning. I stared at her. To whom? 3 buyers attending the trade show. The trade show opened in 4 days. Tessa turned the laptop toward herself. One buyer spilled sparkling water during unpacking. The scarf bled onto a white duvet. I laughed once without humor. Of course it was white. She wants the duvet replaced. Grant told Mel to code it as sample development. Hospitality has no approved budget. He moved it to core marketing. Colin knows? I don't think so. You were in the meeting that removed me. She absorbed that without defending herself. I thought 30 days would cool things down, she said. I thought you'd sign, Grant would revise the founder language, and Evelyn would get bored when the actual work started. Evelyn doesn't get bored with rooms where people know her name. I was trying to protect everyone's jobs. So was I. That's how Grant learned we'd accept anything. Tessa looked toward the entryway. Is the brass plate here? Why? He's looking for it. He asked me. He asked security to check your office twice. Yesterday, Evelyn said the trade show booth needed the original artifact for the founder display. I pictured my brass plate under glass beside Evelyn's photograph. Tessa closed the laptop. I'm sorry. For which part? All the parts I called operations because I didn't want to call them choices. She took a flash drive from her pocket. I can't access the design archive anymore, I said. This isn't the archive. It's export records, expenses, production approvals, and the current launch deck. I'm allowed to work from home. Are you allowed to give it to me? No. I didn't take it. Tessa placed it beside the stained scarf. I said operations could continue without you, she said. I was wrong. My phone lit up before I could answer. A newsletter from Evelyn Mercer had arrived in my personal inbox. The subject line read, "A new bird is leaving the nest." At the top was Evelyn's photograph beside a gold-lined drawing of a wren. Wren House, the announcement said, would debut exclusively at the trade show as an intimate new expression of the Mercer tradition. The first collection was designed in partnership with Lark Linen. She built a replacement, I said. Tessa leaned over the screen. Grant hasn't shown us this. He doesn't know. The newsletter invited buyers to Evelyn's private founder's toast at the Lark Linen booth. Tessa looked from the announcement to the renewal notice on the counter. What are you going to do? I picked up the flash drive. Find out exactly what I'm being asked to save. The flash drive held 3 versions of the company. In Grant's version, the hospitality line would double revenue by spring. In Mel's spreadsheets, it would run out of cash before the second production payment. In Tessa's records, the launch depended on untested fabric, unapproved artwork, pricing Lancaster Weaving had never promised, and packaging Bellwether Press had refused to print. Evelyn had submitted Wren House logo files 3 weeks earlier. Grant had approved a $600 design deposit without asking what they were for. He might not have known about her announcement, but he had paid for her escape route. I worked until sunrise, tagging documents instead of reading them in the order that hurt most. Expenses, approvals, assets, original contracts, current contracts, personal guarantees. By 6, the dining table looked like the physical remains of every time I had said, "I'll handle it." I sent Dana the files. Then I sent Colin and Neil 3 pages, the actual launch costs, the altered care instructions, and Evelyn's newsletter. Neil called first. Founder as a feeling has apparently become a separate corporation. Is Wren House a corporation? I checked. It's an LLC registered to Evelyn. When? Last month. Grant must have given her the path to equity, then stalled. Evelyn had built a second door while he was asking me to keep the first one open. Did company money pay for it? I asked. Mel's tracing that. Colin wants a meeting. I'm suspended. Colin is experiencing regret. Regret isn't governance. No, but it's answering the phone. The meeting took place at Dana's office that afternoon because nobody trusted anybody else's conference room. Dana sat at the end of the table and explained that she represented no party. An independent attorney Colin had hired, joined by video, asked precise questions and made no promises. Grant arrived with Evelyn. She wore cream without a scarf. "What is she doing here?" Colin asked. Evelyn placed her folio on the table. Apparently, I'm the subject. "You're the owner of a vendor or competitor we didn't know existed," Neil said. "Wren House is a concept. It has an LLC. So do book clubs." "No," Neil said. "They really don't." Grant looked exhausted. Mom panicked when Mara threatened the mark. Wren House was intended as a contingency. "Using our money?" Colin asked. A $600 logo deposit is not a corporate raid. It's not your $600. I slid the altered care sheet across the table. Did you approve this? Evelyn read it. I simplified it. You labeled untreated silk machine washable. The final product should be washable. It isn't. Then production failed to execute the vision. Tessa would have admired the efficiency of that sentence. All authority, no fingerprints. Grant glanced at the stain photographs. We can fix the care cards. The dye transfers when wet, I said. A card doesn't fix that. We pull the scarves. The runners failed abrasion testing too. That's not in the report. It's on Tessa's drive. His head lifted. Tessa gave you internal records? She gave the trademark owner evidence of how her mark was being used. Grant turned to Colin. That's a terminable offense. So is hiding a side brand from the partners, Colin said. Evelyn sighed. Could we stop pretending this is about silk? Mara wants to punish me because people associate me with Lark Linen. I want you to stop saying you founded it. I gave it a face. You gave it my words. I delivered them. You traveled on our accounts. I opened doors you stood outside criticizing. That's true, I said. She paused. You did open doors. You can charm a buyer who makes me want to hide under a table. You remember spouses' names, favorite flowers, which people hate sparkling water. You made events feel effortless. Evelyn's shoulders lowered a fraction. And then you decided effortless meant yours. Her face closed again. You never wanted the part I was good at until people valued it. I wanted you to have credit for your part. Credit is what people offer when they intend to keep ownership. Ownership is what you were offered from shares that weren't Grant's to give. Grant pushed his chair back. Enough. I looked at him. Why was it so easy? What? To let her take my place. Nobody took your place. You gave her the history, the launch, a percentage, and my design authority. I was building a role for her, out of mine. His voice roughened. After Dad died, she disappeared. You remember. She stopped seeing friends. She wore the same robe for a week. Lark Linen gave her something back. I know. I helped give it to her. And once she was good at it, you treated her like a favor we forgot to end. Evelyn stared at the table. I had not expected him to say anything true. You could have protected her role, I said, without telling her she built mine. You didn't need that kind of protection. The room went quiet. Grant leaned forward, trying to make me understand. You know who you are. You've always known. Mom needed people to see her. So you spent my name because you thought I had more. His expression changed. There it was, finally. Not cruelty, arithmetic. He had decided I could afford the loss. Dana's clock ticked above the bookcase. Colin cleared his throat. The trade show opens Friday. We need to determine what we're legally displaying. The independent attorney explained that the company's established use of Lark Linen could continue while the licensing dispute was reviewed. The unapproved hospitality extension was harder to defend, especially with changed artwork, changed goods, and a separate Wren House identity. Buyers could still place orders. They would also be entitled to no delivery dependent on unresolved permissions and testing. Grant looked at me. What do you want? I had written the answer at 5 that morning. The company can keep using Lark Linen on the existing core collection. I'll sign the renewal and offer a written license for that use. The hospitality launch stops. Wren House gets no company staff, money, files, booth space, or implied partnership. Evelyn's founder claim is removed from every deck and account. And me? Evelyn asked. You can negotiate a real consulting agreement for work the partners approve. She laughed once. Under you. Under a budget. Grant's eyes moved down my page. There's more. Independent review of expenses, shared financial authority, restoration of my archive and access. My suspension ends. You're using the trademark to take operational control. I'm using it to stop you from taking mine. Colin asked for 48 hours. The trade show opened in '44. They used all of them. Friday morning, the Lark Linen booth still displayed the hospitality collection. Grant had removed Wren House from the main signage, but Evelyn's gold wren appeared on small cards beside each place setting. The brown paper was gone from the Lark emblem. Beneath it stood a glass case, empty except for a printed label. Original brass founder's plate. 2015. He had expected me to surrender that, too. I entered through the convention hall carrying the plate in a canvas tote. The blue-ribboned house key was in the inner pocket. Tessa met me beside a stack of catalogs. "They ended your suspension at 6/12, she said. "I saw. They haven't accepted the license." I saw that too. Grant thinks orders today will force everyone to compromise. Is the stained scarf displayed? We pulled it. The runners? He kept them. Across the booth, Evelyn spotted me. For a second, she looked frightened. Then her event smile arrived. "You came," she said. "It's my company." That remains the question, doesn't it? No, the question is what part you're willing to damage to keep pretending it's yours. Her smile faded. "You think I wanted to steal napkins?" "I think you wanted one room where people didn't know you as Grant's mother or your husband's widow." She glanced toward the buyers gathering near the demonstration table. "You had rooms already," she said. "You had your studio, your marriage. Every meeting stopped when you spoke. I was decoration until customers liked me. And then Grant offered you my chair. He offered me one of my own. Mine had my name on it. A buyer called Evelyn over. She touched my arm before leaving. If you stop this launch, they'll blame you, not him." I know. That was the difficult part. Evelyn understood rooms. At noon, she raised a glass beneath the Lark emblem. "Lark Linen began with a belief," she told the buyers, "that a beautiful table can turn company into family." The line was mine. I had written it for her first catalog dinner. Grant stood beside the empty display case. Colin and Neil watched from opposite ends of the booth. Tessa remained near the order station, where 3 buyers had already opened contracts. Evelyn continued. She called herself the guiding spirit behind the company. She described Wren House as the natural next chapter of the tradition she had built. Grant didn't nod this time. He didn't stop her either. I let her finish. Then I stood. The conversations nearest me thinned. "My name is Mara Mercer," I said. "I founded Lark Linen, designed its mark, and own its federal registration. That registration is entering renewal, and I intend to renew it." Grant's shoulders loosened too soon. "The existing Lark Linen collection remains authorized. The hospitality products displayed today do not. No license has been granted for this extension or for Wren House. The samples are also undergoing additional quality review, so we can't responsibly accept orders for them." One buyer closed her contract folder. Another asked, "What happens to the core line?" It continues. "And these delivery dates? They were never supportable." Grant stepped toward me. "Mara, can we speak privately?" "I've been asking for that since our anniversary." Colin instructed the sales staff to pause hospitality orders. Neil removed the small gold wren cards himself, collecting them in a champagne bucket because there was nowhere else to put them. Evelyn stood beneath the emblem, still holding her glass. "This is vindictive," she said. "No," I told her. "It's accurate." The company did not vanish that afternoon. It lost the launch, the deposits it had rushed, and 2 buyers who no longer trusted our dates. It kept the core orders, the experienced staff, and just enough cash after Colin and Neil added emergency funding in exchange for Grant surrendering sole financial authority. Grant stepped down as chief executive during the review. The partners called it restructuring. He called it humiliation. Our marriage lasted 6 more weeks on paper. In the last conversation we had at the house, he stood beside the entry console, turning his new key in his fingers. "You chose a trademark over us," he said. "No, I chose it after you used us to make my consent irrelevant. I was trying to grow the company. You were trying to grow past needing my permission." He set the key down. Evelyn launched Wren House as a hosting consultancy. Without my scripts, Tessa's schedules, or the company accounts, her first dinner began beautifully and ended with the main course 40 minutes late. She still found clients. Charm was real. It simply wasn't the whole business. Lark Linen became smaller. Colin took over as interim chief executive. Tessa remained in operations and learned to call choices choices. I formed a licensing company, renewed the mark in my name, and signed terms that paid for its use instead of treating it like a marital favor. When my new studio was ready, I mounted the original brass plate above the door. The blue ribbon was still faded from Evelyn's hand and mine. I slipped it through the plate's frame and tied it once, leaving the ends loose. There was no key on it now. I opened the studio door with the one in my pocket, stepped inside, and heard the lock settle behind me.